here's Brody Brazil.
As it relates to the uncertainty of the Tampa Bay Rays and their future and where they might spend the next handful of decades as a hometown, there's two different cities right now taking two kind of different approaches. And we'll talk about Orlando in just a second. They're very much doubling down on the thought of tourism fueling their baseball team, whether it's the Dreamers or, let's be honest, whether it's the Rays that they would be poaching from Tampa. And speaking of Tampa and St. Pete, I mean, the mindset here has really emerged. I think this headline from the Times says it best. This kind of feels like what Tampa Bay is thinking about most right now. Is Orlando chasing Major League Baseball at all? Or are they just chasing their Tampa Bay Rays? And it kind of feels like the latter. I feel like that's an interesting question, but it's almost like an obvious answer at this point. This is a column by John Romano of the Tampa Bay Times, who says the pitch is simple. Orlando is one of the fastest growing metro areas in the U.S. and, depending on the metrics, the largest market without Major League Baseball in the nation. But that's not even the coup de grace for the Dreamers, like the icing on the cake. So what is? Well, Orlando also draws more tourists than any city in America, and the folks behind Orlando's push are convinced they can tap into that reservoir of spenders like no professional sports franchise ever has. I'll stop right there. Tourism fuels theme parks, right? We understand that, and clearly that's what Orlando is centered around. But maybe one of the reasons no sports franchise has ever tapped into that reservoir of spenders of tourists is because it doesn't work. There might be a reason why this is not employed anywhere else. And we'll get to that later on in this video. I know you're thinking about the Raiders in Las Vegas right now. I know you're thinking about the Golden Knights. I know you're thinking about the Orlando Magic. We'll talk about all of them in just a second. But first, here's Jim Schnorf, the Dreamers co-founder, who says, quote, Orlando is a unique market. We'll get 80 million tourists this year. That's 2 million unique tourists every week of the baseball season. So it's similar to having the city of Dallas superimposed over Orlando. Yeah, but that's a rotating cast of characters if you're saying 2 million a week. And so are all of them coming to Orlando specifically for this? Are they carving out time for this? Is this an added attraction that then has to compete with an Epcot or a SeaWorld or anything else, a Universal, anything else that's happening in Orlando? Are you creating competition, or can Major League Baseball even compete with the Disney Worlds and Epcots and such? So I understand this, but I don't know that it's that simple. Like the translation between on paper and in real life, I don't know if that connection is really there. Quote, we don't think there's a close second to us, Orlando. We would have said Las Vegas, or we would have said Las Vegas would have been the second choice if the Athletics weren't planning to move there. So let's evaluate that. They get half the number of tourists, which is apparently true, about 42 million in Las Vegas. They'll get 40 to 42 million. They're also the 39th or 40th media market. We're 15th. Now that part is a little bit more assuring, but that has nothing to do with tourism. Media market is in relation to the amount of television viewers, but also, let's be honest, the population and the core audience that might actually also come to Dreamers games, or let's just say it like it is, Rays games in Orlando, if it really goes that far in that way. I think the media market size, and forget media and broadcast rights and the interesting nature right now of regional sports networks and broadcast contracts, forget all that. We're talking about populations of people, and that as a fan base and as a support group and as a sponsorship core, that matters a little bit more than how many tourists you bring in. So the point here is Orlando a better option than Las Vegas? Probably. Let's just settle that here and now. Probably. But not necessarily because the amount of tourists, because you're already a large media market that's not transient. 8 years ago, Las Vegas had no professional sports teams, Schnorf said. The Raiders have since knocked it out. Stop you right there, Jim. Knocked it out in a sense of selling a lot of tickets, having one of the higher ticket prices on average in the league. Maybe, yeah, if you want to print money, then maybe that's what we're talking about here. But in terms of building a fan base and having any type of home field advantage, does it feel like the Raiders are building that, or they'll ever ever have that in Las Vegas? Have you seen what happens when Kansas City or Denver or any of the LA teams or did the Packers come out? The Vikings came out to Las Vegas. Did you see what their fan bases did to Allegiant Stadium? They flat out took it over. So when you say they've knocked it out, have they? And also, I've seen a lot of Raider games, not so much in the last year, but in 2 prior years. Place was barely even half full at kickoff for a Raiders game. So let's quantify, what do we mean, or tangibly, what do we mean by knocking it out? Hockey sells out every game in Vegas, and I think they have the 3rd highest ticket price for of the 32 NHL teams. Now, hockey's different. NHL was the first team into Las Vegas. They came in right after that shooting tragedy of the Country Music Festival, and the Golden Knights just felt like a healing thing for that city. They also reached the Stanley Cup final their very first year of existence. We also have yet to see, and I'm not trying to be cruel here, I'm just being honest, we've also yet to see the Golden Knights actually struggle. We've seen a lot of teams riding the waves, highs and lows for decades at a time. And so what happens when the Golden Knights finish 30th in the league standings, 32nd in the league standings? What happens when you pay the price in a hard salary cap league structure? What happens when the Golden Knights start paying the price of that? Will they still sell out? Do the Golden Knights base their fans and their attendance on tourism? I don't think to a large degree they do. In fact, I've seen it and I've heard it from their owner, Bill Foley, that they actually try and limit the amount of visiting fans because they want to create a home ice advantage at their own rink. They also only have 41 home dates a year as opposed to 81 like Major League Baseball. Schnorf's going to close it out here by saying, so what's the message? Tourism matters. It matters a whole lot. I don't know that this has been proven true yet. I can't necessarily agree with this part. If you're going to put all your eggs in the tourism basket and say that this is the reason why baseball in Orlando is going to succeed, I'm not saying it's not going to succeed. I'm just saying if this is the horse you're going to ride in on, I don't know how that race is going to go. Romano says that sounds intriguing, but is it true? Baseball is a different beast than the NFL, NBA, and NHL because of the sheer volume of inventory. Like I just said, the amount of games. The average NFL team sold about 560,000 tickets in 2024. The average Major League Baseball team sold more than 2.5 million. That includes tickets on a Monday night against the Royals, no disrespect, Kansas City, or a Tuesday against the Brewers, no disrespect, Milwaukee. That includes 9-game homestands and school nights in the fall. I'll be honest, it also includes school nights in April and May, which are some of the least attended baseball games, even for the popular teams in the biggest markets. So how's it going to go in Orlando or Las Vegas where you're banking on tourism? So this is an interesting take by Orlando Magic CCO Joel Glass. By the way, CCO is Chief Communications Officer. I actually had to stop the video, look that up, make sure I was right. But this is an interesting take and perspective by Joel Glass of the Orlando Magic, who have existed now for decades as a professional sports team. You know, in Orlando, they don't play as many games, home games, as a baseball team does. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges, but how do they approach tourism? I mean, they're already in the market. Quote, the tourism market is a part of our business, just like season tickets, partial plans, group sales, and single game tickets. So like not a majority of this, not the backbone of this, not the reason why the Orlando Magic have existed for decades, why they've been successful to some degree, at least as a business. We do take advantage of the NBA's position as a global sport to try and tap in and attract visitors. So they're not denying it, but you don't hear Joel Glass saying, oh, tourism is, the fuel to our fire. It doesn't necessarily seem like that for the Orlando Magic. But on the flip side, here's John Morgan, one of the Dreamers' co-investors, not the primary investors. That's Dr. Rick Workman. But here's John Morgan saying, quote, first of all, I think a stadium in St. Pete will never happen again. And let's just stop right there. If there was still any question in the Tampa Bay region of like, what are the intentions of Orlando? What are they aiming for here? That's no longer a realistic question. This is the reality. Orlando is coming for the Tampa Bay Rays. Whether they'll get them or not is a different question, but look, here's the Dreamers co-investor speaking directly about a baseball team that can't get things done, can't get its act together, and is very volatile right now. About the Tampa-St. Pete thing, that's probably a bridge too far. Oh, and that's a very direct quote. Literally, the bridge between Tampa and St. Pete. I hear that they've talked a lot about Ybor City. Got the pronunciation right, see? But I don't see that as a possibility because Ybor City is like coming out of a honeycomb. It's impossible to get out of there, like with traffic. So I don't know that there's ever going to be a good site around there, like in Tampa. Here's what we know. At a certain point, it's going to be untenable to keep playing games in Tampa at the Yankees spring training stadium. I totally agree with that. Too hot, too much rain. We haven't even got to that portion of the baseball season yet. Not enough capacity. They're just not making enough money. You can raise ticket prices all you want. If you're only getting 10,000, you could never get to a 25 or a 35,000 attendance game. You're going to lose a lot of money. The stadium location has to be moved, which means the owner needs to sell to someone in Tampa Bay, probably more like Tampa than St. Pete. And the people who have talked to me understand that I'm not interested in Tampa Bay as an investment for baseball. So they've either got to sell it to a group of people over there in Tampa and build a stadium or not. And I think what Mr. Morgan is pointing out here is that the Rays have kind of backed themselves into a corner and their options are not plentiful. And to me, the best option, if our group can pull off the stadium part, is Orlando. So there you go. Directly speaking about the Rays. Jim Schnorf chiming in about the Rays situation. Go back to him for a second. Stuart Sternberg, who is a Wall Street guy, couldn't make it work while already owning the team, and that's with $700 million plus coming from the city and county. And to his point, the Rays pitched a stadium deal. It got reviewed by the city and county. There was some deliberation, some debate, and then the Rays are the ones that pulled out ultimately of the stadium deal. Some other points this column makes, the Dreamers say they haven't talked to the Rays owner, Stuart Sternberg, about the sale. So there is that. They're talking about the Rays, but maybe not directly talking to Rays ownership about a purchase. Tampa and Miami, if you look at Florida baseball, the tickets sold between the Rays and Marlins in 2024, they don't even add up to Major League Baseball's average team attendance. Like baseball in Florida, we've talked a lot about Commissioner Rob Manfred saying the Rays won't leave the state. Governor Ron DeSantis saying that's his mission too. Baseball in Florida honestly isn't hitting right now like, well, theme parks have been for decades. Also, the Dreamers, as much as they are formulating, are rallying the troops, they still need, and they don't have yet, any public partnership established, any public subsidies lined up that they're going to need. They're being honest about that. This is not an entirely privately financed deal for the Dreamers. Here's my takeaways. Number one, let's just get this straight right here, right now. Whether it's casinos in Las Vegas or theme parks in Orlando, like tourism fuels those things. People come to those places for those things. They've been known for those things for decades now. But I don't know that tourism is going to fuel Major League Baseball like it does casinos or resorts or any of the family-friendly stuff in Orlando or the more adult-themed things in Las Vegas. It has yet to be proven. Might be a reality. 5-10 years, I might be eating my words. 5-10 years, I might also be telling you, told you so. We just don't know. Orlando can no longer say they're not aiming at the Rays. Now, they've been honest in saying we think they haven't talked to Rays ownership about a purchase, but there can be no denying the fact that they are aiming straight at the Rays. That was the headline of this whole article. They are going after the Rays. There's no question about it. If Stuart Sternberg does, in fact, sell this team, and Orlando is the highest bidder, and Major League Baseball owners around the country and around North America say, well, we want all the team's values to be up. That only helps us. Why would baseball stop Orlando from happening for the Rays? Literally, if Sternberg can look at Orlando and get what he wants, the most out of it that he wants and can get, he'll say yes to that. Look, he had no problems with maybe moving this team back to Montreal. Orlando's even easier. And the sale, and it's quick, and you stay in the state. Why would Major League Baseball oppose that? I don't think they would. I think they would unanimously vote that, maybe even throw in a no relocation fee, just like they did for the A's and Las Vegas. I just got to say lastly here, my takeaway is that Tampa is now officially paying attention here. And I think they have been. But when a headline pops up like that and a column exists like this, I think that's a rhetorical question. Is Orlando chasing Major League Baseball? No. Or just chasing the Rays? Yeah, they're just chasing the Rays. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, thumbs up while you're down there. Helps me and this video and this channel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you back here next time.